So I think so. Have you ever been here?
Yeah, I've been here a good. I've definitely been here. I have
Okay.
even had some hikes that were corporate hikes that we brought people. Brought the group here, and then we stopped for about 20 minutes, and they got beers, and then we kept
Okay.
on going.
Okay. So in your hikes, are you? What are the areas through? It's urban hikes, right? So what are the areas where your trails are, your experiences are?
Yeah, we cover a lot of neighborhoods on our urban hikes. We are in the Crossroads right here, East Crossroads, the middle, like the mid part of the Crossroads, West Side, River Market, Quality Hill. We have a library district urban hike. We're in the West Bottoms, the historic Northeast, the plaza, and then we've also expanded to the Kansas side. So KCK is where I'm from originally, and we have a hike in Strawberry Hill. We have a live music hike that is a collab with a local venue in Strawberry Hill, and that hike goes to Cobb Point, and we end with live music. And we're in the Quindara Ruins, and then going south, we are in Union Hill. Also, we have a Roanoke, Rosedale, Volker urban hike. We have about 20 different routes covering all of these different neighborhoods right here.
And don't forget North Kansas City.
And North
Coming
Kansas City,
March 21st, right?
Yes. We are working on a North Kansas City urban hike. So it's something that we've done, but we're revamping it, and Michael's actually helping us to revamp it.
Yeah. I was sort of struggling for this slot. We were talking a couple days ago. We were having some beers together, and we brought you up. And I have seen you. I mean, I know your business. I'm aware of your business, and so I love what I consider to be the urban core. Tell me if I'm defining it differently, but basically, I'm from Pendleton Heights to the West Side, North Kansas City to the plaza, and that's sort of like the realm, UMKC. And I live up by the airport, but I love the city. There's just an energy here that you don't seem to have in the suburbs, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like there's an energy. For example, I parked just a street over, and then I came walking through the alleyway, and I glanced at the murals. I did not take time to look at the murals because I was walking at such a fast pace, but there's so many hidden gems here, and just like every single business is extremely unique. I mean, we're right here in Casual Animal, and it has twinkle nights and plants and brick, and it's just I agree. There's something that is really special and unique about this area.
So and so how do you interact with the businesses that are on your trails, and what's that type of what's that collaboration like?
Yeah, we do interact with the businesses that are on our trails. We often will connect with them beforehand and see if we can come inside. For example, we have a coffee urban hike where we make 3 coffee stops, and we stop at a lot of different coffee shops from like Revo Cup to Café Corazon to Oyama to there's a lot of different coffee shops, and we connect with them beforehand, so they're expecting us. Additionally, the Crossroads Hotel is one of our partners. We actually start our Artful Casey streetcar urban hike at the Crossroads Hotel, and they know we're going to be there, and they'll talk with our groups. And that's a collaboration also with the streetcar. So it's not a standing business, but I mean, if you think of the streetcar as a city, the city entity, and that hike is specifically branded with the streetcar. In KCK and Strawberry Hill, we sometimes stop in Hey Sugar. There's a nonprofit called the Police Athletic League that's an incredible community program, and we stop in there. And then often when we're walking, store owners will come out and say, "Hey, come on in."
Yeah.
That happens a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about an urban hike. You can't predict every moment of it. There's sometimes some perfect moments like that, and we're like, of course we'll come in, and just organically we connect with business owners.
I think it's a beautiful way to show off the city. Michael, have you been on some of these hikes?
I have been. I've taken a hike through the River Market down into the West Bottoms. Of course, Lisa and I and her staff collaborated on developing a library district walking tour, which is sort of the area around the Central Library downtown, so around like 10th and Main, and expanding out and just sort of going around that whole district, the old financial district and the old retail district of the city, And we worked together on that, and so I've done that one, of course. And then recently I went on her Quindaro Ruins urban hike, which is incredible. If anyone out there is, you've heard the name Quindaro, maybe you vaguely know what it is or what it was, going down into that area off the river, and you're right there, sort of right across the river from Parkville, and you're north of Kansas City, Kansas, and it's just amazing to see the remnants of the town that was there, and there is just so much history packed into this. It's a rough hike, that's it's more akin to what you think of when you go on a nature trail or something like that, but it is urban in the sense that you start the hike and you're kind of in an urban area of Kansas City, Kansas, and then you just walk down toward the river and you're seeing these old building foundations and hotels that once existed there for this a brewery, even for this town made up of basically freed slaves, and was an abolitionist town where people were escaping from slavery across the river.
Go across the river. You're leaving Missouri. You're going to Kansas. Now you're in a free state.
And it is just, it's truly incredible. And I think just the act of people going down there to see it creates an energy around it and support, and it's it needs more preservation work. So hopefully, what Lisa is doing, taking people down there, can build on that, and there can get some energy around it.
Yeah. So I was doing a little kind of research preparing for this, and there was a historical black college university in that area. Is that right?
Yes.
Is it Western University? Is that what it was called?
Yes,
Okay.
Western University. It was right there. There's a John Brown statue that was on the college campus, and now it's been moved to the corner of the street where 26th. There's another cross street right there, and across the street from the Vernon Center. And right now there's just open fields, and that is where Western University was, which was the only HBCU ever in Kansas.
Yeah.
And
I think that's remarkable. I've been in Kansas City for like 25 years and had no idea. And
it was open until 1940, 41-ish.
It was
basically. So it's fairly recent it's gone away. But
yeah, that's crazy. So what was the inspiration for this, for the urban hike?
My inspiration was actually a podcast.
Okay.
We're on a podcast right now, and I was listening to a podcast about side hustles called Side Hustle Nation when I was working full-time for Girl Scouts.
Okay.
And I heard all kinds of people on the podcast, and then one day I heard somebody being interviewed from San Francisco who has an urban hiking business called Urban Hiker San Francisco, and I fell in love with the idea. It was literally that light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
And I reached out to her to make sure she wasn't planning on expanding here, because I wanted to use her idea here, and she was really supportive. She wasn't planning on expanding here, and she even helped me to get started with ideas and helped me to know the things that I need to know to start this type of business.
Yeah. So I've been to San Francisco a few times over the last couple years. And, in my head, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. An urban hike, right? It's massive. You're going up the hills right there at the ocean. And there's just a ton of hiking around San Francisco regardless. But is it, having traveled, so you've been in different places. I mean, have you always known there was that opportunity here, or were you sort of inspired by some of the other ideas and things that you saw in different areas?
I really was inspired by her podcast and this idea. And I thought, what are the parallels that Kansas has to San Francisco?
Yeah.
Well, we have hills. We don't have the large hills that like they have, but we have hills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have art. We have history. We don't have the bay, but we have the river. And it's our own Kansas City version, and we have the small businesses. And I thought, we have something here, even though it isn't San Francisco. And really, it was that gave me the idea. However, I did grow up playing in the woods. Like there are woods behind my house where I grew up in KCK in the Rosedale area.
Yeah.
Rosedale's very hilly and woodsy.
Yeah.
You would know, you're a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And there are woods behind my parents' house. And I always would go to the woods. And all the time I grew up doing that. And I didn't even know that I was hiking. I didn't even know
Right.
that term, hiking.
Yeah.
So I would say that they were inspirations, little by little, like little seeds that were planted as a child, as a teen, as I would do those things. But I never thought that I would turn it into a business.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting how like it's kind of like jogging. It's like, don't you just mean like running? It's like as we become like more sedentary in what we do day to day, these physical activities like walking around in the forest, now all of a sudden they have these different names. So, Michael, you've always been in the Kansas City area.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, for you, in terms of like the urban core, have you always seen the opportunity in terms of like the history, in terms of, just getting out and about, or is it something that you've sort of developed like recently?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why I felt such a strong connection to Lisa when we met. We met a few years back at a sort of downtown networking event. And I just love the idea because when I was really I've always been sort of historically minded. Those were always my favorite classes in junior high and high school. And, I love the storytelling aspect of it. And it didn't feel like classwork to me.
Right.
So that's what I loved. But when I started to get, I was more becoming an adult. I grew up in Olathe. It took me sort of getting in my early 20s to sort of come down to the city. When I was growing up, that was, you did not come north of 63rd Street.
Yeah.
That was, off limits.
Right.
And so when I, got into my early 20s and started exploring other areas, it was, and I was interested in history, it was really important to me to not only read about these places, but I would feel this urge to go see them. So I was going down to the river front before we had the town of Kansas Bridge and everything to make that easy to just try to get a sense of what the riverfront is like. And then I learned about the 8th Street Tunnel, which was a streetcar tunnel connecting the West Bottoms into downtown, and went to the downtown public library long before I worked there to see if I could find out where this tunnel is it still open? Who knows? And I can remember taking that information that I got at the downtown library and going over to the Quality Hill area and climbing around the hillside in the old West Terrace Park, desperately trying to find some kind of like hidden tunnel entrance that was obscured by trees or something. I didn't find that. They covered over the bottom entrance when they built the highways, and the downtown entrance in the Quality Hill Garment District area has been paved over as well. But, that was an impulse that I had, was to go and actually see these places. I would go drive around old neighborhoods and walk around old neighborhoods. And so when I met Lisa, I was just like so impressed that someone had taken that idea and like turned it into a business. I was just like, oh man, that's a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of that? So I try to work with Lisa as much as I can. We mentioned the library district tour that we worked on. Recently, as she mentioned, we're doing the same thing for North Kansas City. We're relaunching that this spring, and it's just I think getting out, having what I call, and not that I call it only, but firsthand encounters with history, art. It's so beneficial. And then the other aspect of her business that I love, and I'll shut up after this because I know I've been droning on for a long time, but is proving that your city is walkable. I love that idea. Everyone, people throughout my growing up here in Kansas City, the label has been like Kansas City, not walkable, built for cars, et cetera, et cetera. And it's true that there have been these barriers that we've built.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a pedestrian and want to cross under a highway overpass. I get that, but if you kind of go out on one of these tours, Lisa will definitely take you into those kinds of places and prove that it can be done, and there are strengths in numbers, and I love the whole idea behind it.
Yeah, there are segments, right? The city is, I mean, one of the things that, and I didn't understand this until recently, is there are true like neighborhoods, urban neighborhoods. They're distinct districts, and not just that you hear, oh, the Crossroads, the West Bottoms, the River Market. Like you get out into these streets, into these areas, and you realize these are like communities, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, who are the people who are your clients? Are they tourists? I mean, who is doing this?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because you would think they would be tourists. That's what I thought that's who I thought would be my initial audience. But actually, our main audience are Kansas Cityans.
Yeah.
We do have tourists that come, and I'm working on getting more in the tourism crowd, and hopefully that will happen with the World Cup. But usually we'll have about 10 people on an urban hike, and maybe eight are from Kansas City, and then maybe 2 are from out of town.
Yeah, so it's people here locally that are just curious about what we have to offer. You know, we were at the Christmas event for the West Bottoms.
Yeah, Lisa was there too.
Yes,
Okay, all right. Well, I missed you. And so I was, my wife and I, we were walking around looking at the art that is around, and so you, I mean, I don't know if you do this, but like I do, I walk up and I look at it, and I'm trying to like visualize, like, where is that? Where are the buildings? Where are the landmarks? I mean, you can think of a city as, it's a city, right? It's not walkable. It's a city, but I mean, these are sort of like living, breathing entities that have like a history, and I think that is like, I think it's so fascinating, and I think that the different neighborhoods, as you go through, you see those different characteristics. I mean, what has surprised you about this whole endeavor? I mean, what did you not expect to gain from this?
I did not think that there was so many potential to have so many urban hikes.
Yeah.
Like I at the beginning, I named off all these neighborhoods where we're in, and there's so many more neighborhoods that we could be in. I have sometimes neighborhood groups reaching out to me. Currently, Armourdale just reached out to me, the Armourdale Renewal Association, the Argentine Betterment, I think Betterment Corporation. She and I, the director and I, had a meeting about a month or 2 ago, and that's just 2 examples of neighborhoods that are perfect for urban hikes, and they're neighborhoods that you wouldn't think to go. You wouldn't think to, let me walk around Armourdale and see. But there's so much culture there. There's so many restaurants there. And I just am so surprised at the potential to keep creating more and more urban hikes.
Yeah, it's and so this originated during COVID.
Right before COVID, 2019, yes.
2019, man, and that's the story of this place as well. There are so many businesses around in the urban core that people came up with the idea of 2019, and then all of a sudden they had to deal with the reality of COVID. I mean, what type of impact? To me, it seemed like it would actually be a boom for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's COVID. COVID was
you and crypto.
Crazy. Right. In the beginning, I remember I was really excited in the spring to launch our urban hikes after a cold winter, and then all of a sudden we got hit with the pandemic and how we had to stay at home. And I remember how sad I was, and I was like, no, I'm going to keep on networking. I'm going to do Zoom networks. I'm going to keep on going. And then by the end of May, I started to have some urban hikes. And then by the summertime, we had more urban hikes. And then I got some more guides that came on towards the end of the year in 2020. And really, that's why my audience is a Kansas City audience. Because at first, I started out focusing just on tourists. But during the pandemic, there weren't tourists. Yeah. And then word of mouth spread in Kansas City, which I am so grateful for. Kansas City is such a wonderful city for word of mouth. And the word of mouth spread. People posted on their Facebook, on their Instagram, told their neighbors. And that's why, mainly out of our 2,000 visitors that came on our urban hikes last year, they were mostly Kansas Cityans.
Yeah. And I have to commend, Lisa, you mentioned the cold weather. And following your social media, I am always impressed. You are out leading hikes. 10 degrees outside. You're still, no cancellations. We're doing this,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if I could get out there, in that weather. So, hats off to you.
Thank you.
I think so. My wife and I were in Chicago in December, and we were downtown, and we would go out and we would bundle up and layer up. And when we were in motion, it was sort of like not noticeable. And I think that's like kind of like the trick. And so you can think, hey, I'm going to just hunker down here. But if you prepare for it and you start moving, you can handle it.
Yeah.
Shoveling my driveway this year, I was shedding layers.
You got sweaty.
It's -8 degrees outside, and I'm like taking stuff off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And on our winter hikes, we also go inside places. So we, it was 10 degrees on Saturday, but it was sunny. So we looked to see, is it going to be sunny or not compared to the temperature? And we had our Taste Your Way through KCK urban hike, where we actually went into 4 different restaurants. So starting out at a Cuban coffee shop, we went to different restaurants along the way. So we aren't outside for more than about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you don't have that much of a chance to get too cold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this to me, in some ways, this is like a community service you've figured out how to monetize. I mean, it's in a wonderful way, right? I mean, and so how? I mean, is that something that you were mindful of when this process started?
I was really mindful about it being authentic, and I wanted to preserve the history of the area and highlight the voices that don't always get highlighted. So my first route was the Crossroads West Side route. And I remember going into Los Alamos restaurant and talking to the owner, and I'm like, okay, the West Side, it's traditionally a Mexican neighborhood. I want to highlight the Mexican businesses here. So in that way, I had that mindset, but I think I'm just really pleased at how it's turned even more, like I feel like there's even more social impact than what I had even dreamed of.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I mean, do you think she's doing a good job of like kind of representing the history? You as the BiehlCast like historian,
official historian,
yeah,
love
absolutely.
it. Happy to accept that title.
Okay.
I was really inspired by just the idea of the business, and I have looked for every way that I can as a librarian to, which sounds strange, but I am a local history librarian, to collaborate with Lisa in any way that I can. I mentioned we work together on the library district tour.
Yep.
We have plans for this summer.
Yeah, we do.
We're developing more
good amount.
beyond what the other hikes we've mentioned. So I just see it as an ongoing thing. I mentioned that I'm a librarian, but I don't always do a lot of librarian things.
Yeah.
But
Explain the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah, right. So, but I see, as librarians, we are about connecting people to resources, history. In my work, history.
Yeah.
And I, as a core belief of mine is that firsthand encounters with history, or art, or whatever it may be, culture, society, that is extremely important. So if I, through my work as a librarian, can help people have those encounters, and Lisa can be someone who facilitates that, then I see that as achieving my mission as a librarian. We worked together last summer on hikes originating from the Ruiz Public Library on the west side. So, this is a great chance for library patrons to come in and register and go on these hikes and have that kind of experience.
Yeah, I think that as you go through around Kansas City, there are so many, there's just so many compelling neighborhoods. They all sort of have their story, but, to have a good story, a compelling story, you need to have a good storyteller. And so I don't imagine you're the only person that is running these hikes.
Right.
And are you guys mindful of that, of the storytelling aspect of it?
Yeah, we're mindful. We're also mindful of the importance of connecting with our audience.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important to make the people in our group really feel that they're heard. Sometimes people want to share their stories on the urban hikes, and we allow that because we try to create a community in that 3 hours that we're on an urban hike. So there's the storytelling aspect of it, but then there's also that human connection. And then we also encourage them to connect with each other. So then it's more than just us. So it's kind of, there's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah.
That's another great thing is that you go on these hikes and you have people from all over the metro whose paths may never cross otherwise. And they're put together in a group, they're walking together in a pack down sidewalks and city streets, and the connections that are made are just great.
It is interesting when you talk to people and you meet people in the different communities in the different suburbs, and you will have folks that like have been in Kansas City in the metro area for their entire lives. And, you know, you'll mention Pendleton Heights and they won't know what you're talking about. And in some ways it sort of like kind of bums me out, but in other ways it's like, man, there's just so much opportunity here.
Yeah.
And with the opportunity here, you know, you can see that, you know, just looking outside here at the Crossroads, I mean, there's a lot of, in different neighborhoods, you know, there's work being done, there's development being done. How do you feel like Kansas City, and maybe I'll ask Michael this, how do you feel like Kansas City has done in terms of, you know, as they've like upgraded or and modernized, how do you feel like Kansas City's done with kind of preserving the history and the stories of the city?
You know, geez, that's a complicated question, but I'll try to meander my way through it. But I do think if you're talking about the official role of the city, there is a historic preservation commission that at work in City Hall. So people who are mindful of the historic character of these neighborhoods and certain buildings and places. Of course, there's only so much that the city can do. You're kind of seeing that now around the Union Hill area, the 31st and Main Street area, where there were efforts made to preserve the building there on the northeast corner there. But it's, you know, property owners still sort of hold sway ultimately.
Yeah.
But the city, I think, has done an admirable job in recent years. You know, the 1950s are kind of an area that I'm always fascinated by because it's a pivotal moment in Kansas City. You have the whole urban renewal era coming in, what they originally deemed slum clearance, but was rebranded as urban renewal. And so you have this sort of wholesale clearing of what was, you know, buildings that were deemed blighted. We have highways coming through neighborhoods that were oftentimes intentionally disinvested from, and property values lowered, setting the stage for a highway to come through and say, well, this is the cheapest way we can do this thing. And so, you know, you see that around downtown especially. We have a lot of cleared areas, we have a lot of parking lots, we have a lot of highways. However, you know, emerging from the 1960s is the whole historic preservation movement. You get the National Register of Historic Places. In Kansas City, there's a great example in the Folly Theater. I don't know if it was the first blighted building that was restored using federal money, but it was among them. It was a groundbreaking situation of taking federal funds that would typically have been used to bulldoze a building and build a parking garage or a new office building or something like that, but putting it into bringing that theater back because it was in very bad shape by the 1970s, and there was a whole big, you know, campaign and behind it. The city got, the public got behind it. Same with Union Station, restoring that. So there was a sort of turning of the tide from the 1950s and 1960s, where we start to see the city acting to help preserve these things. There's in addition to the National Register of Historic Places, there's a Kansas City Register of Historic Places that is maintained by the Historic Preservation Commission at City Hall. So I do admire the work that they've done in recent years.
Are there any projects or any opportunities that you see in neighborhoods around Kansas City in the urban core where you're like, that's going to be something, or where you think there's an area of opportunity in terms of, you know, for whether it's hiking or just, I mean, and I'm kind of meandering around this particular question, but you can drive around and you can see these wonderful historical buildings. You can drive around, you can see opportunity there. What's a part of Kansas City that you feel like is deserving of attention?
Say Argentine is really deserving of attention. Yeah. There is a giant mural there painted by Jose Faust that is absolutely incredible, that tells the whole story of Argentine from the time of the native people to recent days. And that takes up an entire city block. There's a new coffee shop there that's been around for, I say new, but Grounded Soul has been there for a couple of years. And just up the road is KC Farm School. And in that area, and so that's a teaching farm where a teaching farm plus a farmer's market, plus you can get CSA. They do a lot there, and that's an area that is really overlooked a lot of times. But I feel like that's an area that it has been growing, and I see it continuing to grow. There's this incredible international market there called Mercado Fresco. You can get all kinds of tropical food there that you couldn't get anywhere else, and so I see that area. There are other areas too that I just need to think about it a little bit that we walk.
Well, I would think that, like, I mean, you're local, right? And so you're here in the community, and you're in and around these streets all the time. I mean, when I listen to you talk about this and I watch the energy that you have for it, I mean, what's it like to have like a job that you sort of created in an area where you probably are never going to get bored?
Yeah, it's really fun, but at the same time, I want to be out exploring all the time. Like what Michael was saying, that he was exploring in the hillside. I never explored in the hillside, but I remember actually considering it. And, and my husband was like, do not go do that.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need to go explore there in that hillside that is about, and my some of my guides and I will walk around and explore, and I wish we could do it all the time. For example, last week, 4 of us just did a 10-mile walk on Troost. Just for fun.
Yeah.
And
just for fun.
Just for fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
on.
We weren't, it really was just for fun. And we're just like looking up on Clio, which is a historic app so that you can learn about historic buildings. And we were looking up buildings on Clio. We were stopping in, we stopped in different restaurants and ate and got coffee. And we had so much fun. And I was like, I wish that I could do this every single day. But I have all the admin work as well. So really having a job like that, like what I have, or having this business that I have, it makes me want to do it all the time, but I'm not able to.
Yeah, and so you have a staff that of guides?
Yes.
Yeah, so how big is your operation?
Yeah, I have 10 different guides.
Okay.
And we have another one that just is coming on right now who actually gives foraging hikes. And she's a foraging pro, and her name is Amy Bausman, and she is just coming on to give some foraging hikes this summer, like spring and summer. So that will make 11 guides.
Yeah. Does she know where the pawpaw trees are?
Yes, she does.
Okay.
And we actually have a pawpaw hike that was led by another guide that we launched last year.
That's so my wife is, just foraging. I mean, she's just like this. I've said this earlier, but she's probably in a field right now with like birds, like, singing around her. And we had this deal. We were at, I think it's Baker Creek, which is in West Missouri. It's like this heirloom seed place. She went to this thing where they talked about the pawpaw trees.
Yeah.
And do you understand how the pawpaw trees work? Like they're all clones. Like you got to and so we found, there was an app that she found that could identify where like people could say where they saw pawpaws or whatever it was. And we went in and we had 4 different like little like saplings or whatever, and like gorilla planted those trees, so hopefully they'll start fruiting. But the foraging thing, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that would be, and you don't necessarily think about foraging when it comes to like urban hikes in the Kansas City area, but there's a lot of the area that is forested, that is wooded.
Yeah, exactly. And we sometimes include nature trail segments on our hikes. The only one that is completely nature trail is the Quindera ruins that Michael was talking about, but this one will be more on nature trails.
So what were you doing before you started this?
I was working full-time at Girl Scouts. I was the manager of the Hispanic Initiative, and so I was out in the community a lot, but it was a whole different community. It was the I was networking with a lot of immigrant moms that were looking to have Girl Scout troops, and they predominantly Spanish-speaking moms. And then also, I was networking a lot with the professional Hispanic community, like the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and those types of groups in Kansas City.
So I always like do a little research on people, and so you spent some time in the Dominican Republic,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
And so what led you to the Dominican?
I was in Peace Corps, and that's where they placed me.
Okay. So you're from Kansas City originally, Rosedale.
Yes.
And what was that experience like? How did that inform you for when you came back here?
Peace Corps. The
Yeah.
Peace
Yeah,
Corps
that experience.
helped me to be resilient.
Yeah.
It is hard being alone in a rural. I say alone. I was surrounded by people, but away from nobody was there. I didn't have anyone that was close to me that was of my culture when I was in the Dominican Republic, and I was living in a rural community, and I had to start from the ground up working. I was a health volunteer, and I worked with youth, and resilience was huge. And in the Dominican Republic, things always went differently than what I expected.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are so many parallels when you're an entrepreneur that you think, okay, I'm going to start making money in year 2. Well, that might not happen. It didn't happen for me. I mean, year 2 was 2020 for me.
Yeah.
And so I would say the resilience. I also feel that just being, I became so used to and comfortable in the Dominican Republic. I felt, and I have so many people that I'm close to that are Dominican.
Yeah.
And I feel like that helps me just with my cross-cultural skills in general with many cultures.
Yeah.
But I would say mainly the resilience and grit, because it's hard to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep going. You have to pivot. I had to pivot. I had to be persistent. There's all these things that I did in the Peace Corps that I just organically developed because of survival, more or less.
Yeah.
And then I've brought it here.
Yeah, and it seems like that's what entrepreneurship is about, is like survival. You know, as I've gone into different locations and had these conversations with different people, it's always like, it's just like survival. It's sort of like, you know, there's never a point, or has there ever been a point where you're like, oh, I've made it?
No.
Right.
Anyone have that?
Right. Because I mean, I guess
even the billionaires don't have that.
Yeah, that's true. You know, as an entrepreneur, I guess you get promoted to customer, like, you know what I mean? Like if it doesn't work, but I think it's very admirable. I think what you're doing is lovely and something that is needed here in the community. And so, I have a question. What type of banana bread? Do you have a past with banana bread? Yeah, my wife is a chef and a baker as well. So.
Excellent baker. I've had cookies. I can vouch for her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the Dominican Republic, there are banana trees everywhere.
Yeah.
You can buy bananas really easily from all the corner stores, the markets, and banana bread, though, is not common. But banana bread in the U.S. is very common. You know, it's something I started to make banana bread as a child from my Sesame Street book. There was a recipe in my Sesame Street book for banana bread. That was my first recipe that I ever made. And so for me, it comes second nature. I don't even have to use a recipe now. And when I realized in the Dominican Republic that we have bananas everywhere, but no one was making banana bread, I started to teach everyone how to make banana bread. That was something that I included in my healthy nutrition classes, you know, because I was using the resources around to make things in a different way. And then later, when I actually lived in the Dominican Republic outside of Peace Corps, I started a side hustle making banana bread.
Yeah. Did you franchise that? I mean, I imagine it's like, is that how barbecue worked here? Hey, we got a lot of cows. Let's do something with them. I think that's fascinating that there was no banana bread in an area where there's a bunch of bananas.
Right. It just wasn't common. I mean, they just eat their bananas.
Yeah.
Maybe now there's more banana bread.
Okay, yeah, maybe
your legacy.
Maybe that was your legacy. Okay, so I got a couple questions here. I want to ask the two of you guys to kind of get some insight here. And so, is there something about Kansas City that when people kind of talk about it, that you sort of like roll your eyes at, like, you know, something that people sort of identify with this city that is just like so cliche, so over the top, that you're knowing that you love it all and there's value to hiking around all of it?
I mean, the two things that come to my mind. I grew up in Kansas, so
Okay.
anytime I was on the coast or anytime I was anywhere, everyone always made Wizard of Oz jokes.
Okay.
So that
I remember
definitely
that. Yep.
okay.
Same.
Okay.
From being from Kansas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Second, when people find just the things to do in the Power and Light District,
Okay. Yeah. That's
there's so much more.
right. Yeah. What about you?
I
I mean,
think-
you've been here, so.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned about the Wizard of Oz references, but also I think to go back to something I was talking about earlier about the walkability thing.
Yeah.
I hear that constantly. I see people, posting about that online, these things online, like, oh, we can't have this there because where's everybody going to park? And
Yeah.
well, that's 10 blocks away from, and I mentioned I grew up in Olathe.
Yeah.
I have a vivid memory of moving out of my parents' house, coming back for one holiday season, and we were out of milk. Pretty common occurrence. And there was a 7-Eleven at the entrance of our subdivision, and I'm talking 3 blocks.
Yeah.
And I, had moved to the city, and I was like, oh, I'll just walk over there. I haven't
Yeah.
taken a walk yet today. And my parents thought I was insane to
go 3 blocks?
Yeah, that I wouldn't. They were ready to call the authorities on me for that. And I just think that, I don't know, hopefully people are, this is I don't know. I forget how old I am at this point, but hopefully people are not raising their children with that mindset nowadays. But you do still, you encounter it,
Yeah.
people just seem like they just are so against the idea that you might walk somewhere. And of course, again, the city isn't exquisitely built for pedestrians all of the time, but there's something to be said for going out and proving that it can be done because it creates the conditions for the mindset. It changes how we think and feel about our city.
Yeah, I think the streetcar has gone a long ways. I mean, it's sort of cheating a little bit, right? But it's gone a long ways to sort of connecting this like core that we have here.
Definitely. I attended the opening of the Main Street extension. And for the library, we created a sort of streetcar history guide, a little booklet that you can read about some of the sites that you'll see along the route. So we were distributing those at different sites. We had one near the Central Library, at the stop near the Central Library downtown, at Westport Road, Westport Road and Main Street where the Westport branch is, and then down at the end of the line where the Plaza Branch Library is. We were distributing those things, but because of that, I was riding up and down the streetcar line all day, visiting these stops, and just seeing how many people were just there and having an amazing time. It was kind of rainy and damp and cold that day, but it was like all smiles. Everyone was so happy, and it really is just it's a small little line and a small little extension, but you got to start somewhere.
I mean, there's something just fun about a train. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just it's sort of cool. And so, so my last question for you. Well, I mean, I've asked him this question before because he's been on, but barbecue or street tacos? What does Kansas City do best?
Oh, wow. That's such a hard question for what we do best. I don't think I can say what we do best because there are so many delicious locally owned barbecue restaurants.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I mentioned our Taste Your Way Through KCK Urban Hike. We go through a lot of different locally owned, authentic Mexican restaurants that are so good. And there's so many more with the Taco Trail, and that's on the KCK side. It's hard to say, and it just like you can't, you might have a different favorite barbecue than Michael has, than I have, and so I feel in my head it's hard to say which is
Listen,
better.
I got 3 boys. I understand. Sometimes you just don't want to go on the record to pick a favorite. But so if somebody wants to get a hold of you or learn more about your hikes, how can they do that?
You can go to my website, urbanhikeskc.com. So that's hikes like you're hiking in the mountains, urbanhikeskc.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as Urban Hikes KC. and I'm on LinkedIn just as my name, Lisa Pena.
Okay, excellent. And if somebody wants to check out a book or learn more about local Kansas City history,
come on down and see me. I'm on the 5th floor of the Central Library. What else? My Instagram handle is at Michael V, like Victor Wells.
Yeah.
Although it stands for Vernon, so V like Vernon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how you find me.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate. I'm gonna make it sort of like one of the missions, like one of the core values of the BiehlCast to expand your like social media presence.
Oh,
Against your will.
yeah.
I'm just gonna do it anyway. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this, guys.
Thank you for having us.
You are quite welcome.